Imagine walking down a street where every other house is empty, windows shattered, doors boarded up, and the eerie silence is broken only by the wind whistling through broken glass. This isn't a scene from a horror movie, it's Detroit, Michigan, a city with tens of thousands of abandoned homes that tell a story of loss, hope, and mystery. Why did so many people leave their homes behind? What secrets are hidden inside these crumbling walls? Today we're diving deep into the stories behind Detroit's abandoned houses, and trust me, you'll want to stick around to uncover the chilling truths and surprising hope behind this urban decay. Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in a city where entire neighborhoods feel like ghost towns? Let's find out. Detroit wasn't always like this. Picture a city buzzing with life, where factories churned out cars and families filled neighborhoods with laughter. In the 1950s, Detroit was home to nearly 2 million people, a powerhouse of industry known as the Motor City. The auto industry was king and jobs were plentiful. People from all over the country moved here for a piece of the American dream. Houses were built, schools were packed, and the streets were alive. But then something changed. The population plummeted to less than 700,000 by recent years. That's over 1 million people gone. Where did they go? Why did they leave their homes behind? The answer lies in a mix of economic collapse, social shifts, and some shocking decisions that turned thriving neighborhoods into wastelands. Curious about what caused this dramatic fall? Let's dig into the first big reason. The auto industry was Detroit's heartbeat, but by the 1970s it started to falter. Foreign car makers began outpacing American ones, offering cheaper, more fuel-efficient vehicles. Factories in Detroit closed one by one, leaving thousands without jobs. Imagine waking up to find your factory shuttered, your livelihood gone, and no new jobs in sight. Families couldn't pay their mortgages, and many had no choice but to pack up and leave. Entire streets became dotted with empty homes. By recent estimates, Detroit has around 22,000 abandoned houses and 78,000 total abandoned buildings. Can you picture a city with that many empty structures? It's like a puzzle with half the pieces missing, but job losses were just the start. What else pushed people out? Stick around to find out. Another massive blow was the housing crisis that hit Detroit hard. In the early 2000s, predatory lending practices targeted many residents, especially in black neighborhoods. People were offered loans they couldn't afford with sky-high interest rates. When the housing bubble burst in 2008, foreclosures swept through the city like wildfire. Homes were repossessed, families were evicted, and properties were left to rot. Some reports suggest that overzealous property tax assessments also played a role, making it impossible for homeowners to keep up with payments. Have you ever thought about what it's like to lose your home because of unfair systems? Thousands of Detroiters faced this nightmare, and their abandoned houses became symbols of broken dreams. But there's more to this story, something even darker. Want to know what it is? Crime and safety concerns pushed even more people out. As jobs disappeared and poverty rose, crime rates spiked. By the 1980s and 1990s, Detroit gained a reputation for violence, with neighborhoods becoming unsafe. Families who could afford to move fled to the suburbs, leaving behind those who couldn't. Vacant homes became targets for vandalism, arson, and squatters. Picture this: a once lively street where kids played, now filled with boarded-up houses, some burned to the ground. One chilling story from 2014 even claimed a family saw a strange ape-like creature climbing out of an abandoned home's window. Bigfoot or not, it shows how these empty houses spark fear and mystery. Have you ever walked past an abandoned building and felt a chill? What do you think lurks inside Detroit's forgotten homes? Let's explore some of these haunting stories next. One house on McCormick Street made headlines in July 2025 when it exploded, killing a woman and injuring a man. Firefighters arrived to find the house in pieces, with 2 neighboring homes damaged. The cause is still under investigation, but it raises questions. Was it a gas leak, arson, or something else? Abandoned houses are often left unsecured, making them vulnerable to accidents or intentional destruction. Another story comes from a man named Vincent Orr, who bought 2 abandoned homes from the Detroit Land Bank Authority for just $3,300. He spent over $100,000 fixing them up, turning them into beautiful homes. But imagine the challenge: rotting floors, collapsed roofs, and years of neglect. Why would someone take on such a risky project? Would you dare to buy a crumbling house for a few bucks? These stories show both the danger and the potential of Detroit's abandoned homes. But there's another side to this, something that might surprise you. While many houses sit empty, some are being brought back to life. The Detroit Land Bank Authority has been working since 2014 to turn blight into opportunity. They've renovated over 12,000 vacant V-homes, transforming them into places where families can live again. Imagine a house that's been empty for decades, filled with mold and broken windows, now shining with fresh paint and new life. One non-profit even turned an abandoned building into a summer camp for kids, giving them a safe place to play. But it's not easy. Renovators like Nicole Curtis, star of HGTV's Rehab Addict, describe these houses as disgusting and filled with squatters. A new HGTV show called Condemned follows a father-daughter duo tackling Detroit's worst houses, racing against strict city deadlines and harsh winters. Would you have the guts to take on a house that's falling apart? What's driving people to save these homes? Let's find out. The city's efforts to fight blight are making a difference, but it's a slow battle. Since 2014, Detroit has demolished over 20,000 vacant structures. Each demolition costs about $12,600, and the city has spent millions to clear dangerous properties. Why so much effort? Because abandoned houses aren't just eyesores, they lower property values, attract crime, and pose health risks like asbestos and lead paint. But tearing down homes isn't the only solution. The Land Bank's programs help people buy these houses for as little as $1,000, encouraging them to fix them up. One couple, Miranda and her husband, bought a 1927 home near the University of Detroit Mercy that had been vacant for 7 years. They turned it into their dream home, proving that with hard work, these houses can shine again. Have you ever thought about buying a fixer-upper? What would it take to turn a wreck into a home? There's more to this story, including some dark challenges. Not every attempt to save Detroit's houses goes smoothly. In 2025, the city sued a Florida-based real estate company for neglecting over 400 properties, leaving them to decay and become havens for crime. Imagine living next to a house that's falling apart, owned by someone you've never met, maybe even overseas. It's a problem that frustrates residents and city officials alike. Then there's the issue of squatters. Some abandoned homes become shelters for people with nowhere else to go, but this can lead to dangerous situations. In one case, 3 children were found living alone in a suburban Detroit home filled with trash and feces, basically abandoned by their mother. How does a city tackle problems like this? What happens when houses become more than just empty? They become dangerous. Let's look at the bigger picture. Detroit's decline wasn't just about economics or crime, it was also about people losing hope. The city's population drop left behind not just houses, but entire neighborhoods. Schools closed, businesses shut down, and even churches were abandoned. One post described 4 Detroit churches, once the heart of their communities, now crumbling from economic collapse. It's heartbreaking to think of places where people once gathered, now left to rot. But why did so many leave? Some point to systemic issues like claims that the city overvalued homes to raise taxes, forcing residents out. Others say crime and neglect made staying impossible. Whatever the reasons, these empty houses hold stories of families, dreams, and struggles. Have you ever visited a place that felt frozen in time? What do you think it's like to live in a city full of such places? There's hope on the horizon, though. Let's explore it. Despite the challenges, Detroit is fighting back. Neighborhoods are slowly coming back to life thanks to community efforts and creative solutions. The Detroit Land Bank has turned thousands of vacant lots into community gardens and event spaces, giving residents a reason to stay and invest in their neighborhoods. Programs like Demolition Week encourage locals to get involved, tearing down dangerous structures and reclaiming their streets. One pastor, Alonzo Bell, started a non-profit called Redeem Detroit to renovate homes and create spaces for families. He said seeing abandoned buildings inspired him to act, knowing people needed homes. It's a reminder that behind every empty house is a chance for a new beginning. But what does it take to bring a whole city back from the brink? Can Detroit rise again? Let's dive into some inspiring stories next. Take the Lee Plaza, a 1920s luxury hotel turned low-income housing, abandoned in the 1990s. It sat vacant for decades, vandalized and stripped of its grandeur. But in 2025, restoration began to turn it into 117 affordable senior apartments and 65 market-rate units. Imagine a building once called Detroit's last vacant high-rise becoming a home again. It's a symbol of hope, showing that even the most broken places can be revived. Or consider the Michigan Central Station, another abandoned landmark now restored as a wedding venue where couples create new memories in a place that once stood empty. These projects show Detroit's resilience, but they're not without challenges. Harsh winters, tight budgets, and complex financing make every restoration a battle. Would you take on a project this big? What's it like to see a city rebuild itself? Let's uncover more. The stories of Detroit's abandoned houses aren't just about decay, they're about people, like Christina Morris, whose father disappeared in 1995. For years she wondered what happened, even imagining he was an undercover agent. In 2018, a Detroit police sergeant solved the mystery, finding his remains in a cemetery. Her story shows how abandonment affects not just buildings but families, leaving questions that linger for decades. Or think about the urban explorers who venture into these houses, finding pristine bedrooms or hoarded belongings left behind. One explorer in Detroit found a house filled with unopened QVC orders and buckets of waste, a snapshot of a life interrupted. What would you find if you stepped inside one of these homes? Are you brave enough to explore? There's one final piece to this puzzle. Detroit's abandoned houses also spark imagination and fear. Urban legends thrive here, like the 2014 Bigfoot sighting that made headlines. Whether it was a prank or a case of mistaken identity, it shows how these empty homes fuel mystery. Social media posts talk about Detroit's blight being intentional, with claims of systemic issues driving people out. Others estimate 31,000 empty homes and 90,000 vacant lots, painting a picture of a city hollowed out. But amidst the decay, there's a push for change. From TV shows like Condemned to residents like Vincent Orr, people are betting on Detroit's future. The question is, can this city overcome its past? Will these houses stay empty forever, or will they find new life? Let's wrap this up with a look at what's next. Detroit's story is one of loss, resilience, and hope. The abandoned houses are more than just buildings. They're time capsules holding stories of families, dreams, and struggles. From explosions to renovations, from urban legends to community gardens, each house has a tale to tell. The city is fighting back, with over 12,000 homes restored and thousands more demolished to make way for new beginnings. But the battle isn't over. Every day, residents, non-profits, and even TV stars are working to rebuild Detroit, one house at a time. So what do you think? Can Detroit rise from its ashes? Would you move into one of these homes, knowing its history? Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever seen an abandoned place that gave you chills? And if you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Next time, we're diving into another city's hidden secrets. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. See you in the next video.